Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Hey, great to have you with us on the show today.
It's a great day to be here, Steve.
It is, as a matter of fact. It was great to be in Williamsport last night. My good friend Chris Carlin, and you see everything that he does with ESPN and so forth. But Chris is also the play-by-play voice of Rutgers football, and has been since 2004. So we are crossing paths all the time, and he's just such a great guy. And in fact, next week, not next week, the week after, 10 days from now, we're going to get together for the Rutgers basketball game in Piscataway. But at one point, his first job was with the Geneva Cubs, who then became the Williamsport Cubs. And he was inducted into the Bowman Field Hall of Fame last night. He did everything. And he's going to be a great example. I'm going to talk to my class about the willingness to do anything job-wise, within an organization to get yourself ahead. I don't mean the willingness to do everything. That's the Jim Harbaugh example.
But doing anything, if you're asked to do something, you do it. Just get it done.
They needed him to run the game on the field. They needed him to help with the scoreboard. They needed him to announce the games. They needed whatever. I'll do whatever the organization needs because. And now look where he is. He's
pretty good.
And not only that, he's just take the on-air. You always have to take the on-air persona away sometimes because they'll be spouting opinions, and it's just opinions. But as a guy, he is a great guy and a terrific announcer, excellent play-by-play announcer. And then Tim Kirchin was there last night, and
one of the best.
And of course, their son. And I know Tim a little bit. His wife's a Penn State grad. They go to a game every year here. And then Kent TeCulvey was there last night as well. TeCulvey did. Everybody told interesting stories. My favorite one that Kent TeCulvey told was about Game 7 of the '79 World Series, where he throws the final pitch. Pat Kelly flies out to Omar Moreno in center field. This is before you were born.
Yeah, this was 21 years before I was born, to be exact.
The Pirates had 3 different uniforms. They had the black jerseys, the gold jerseys, which they called the Bumblebees, and the pinstripes. And they could wear them in all combinations. The players were never allowed to pick what uniform they were going to wear. It was picked by somebody else all the time. And he made a joke. He said it may have been the secretary that picked what we were wearing that particular day. The only time they picked where the players went in and said, we want to wear this, was Game 7 against the Orioles. They wanted, no matter what combination it was, they wanted to wear the gold jerseys. And the reason they wanted to wear the gold jerseys is that meant they could wear the black hats that had the Willie Stargell stars on them. That's why the only reason, and the players demanded it, right? So the combination was they had the black pants on that night with the gold jerseys, and they could wear the black hats that had the Willie Stargell stars on them. He says, now a lot of times he says the stars, you put it on there and it eventually fall off or whatever. He says, I actually sewed mine in. That's why when you look at he's got them all across the front. Well, they win the game. Okay, he throws the pitch to Pat Kelly, a little, typical TeCulvey pitch, boom, sinker low and away. Kelly hits it in the air. Omar Moreno catches it. They're just bedlam on the field, bedlam. Steve Nikosha's the catcher, runs out, the whole deal. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, TeCulvey's furious. You look at the tape. He's mad because some knucklehead fan came out and took his hat. He loved that hat because it had all the stars on it for wins. He says, mine were easy. He says, wins, saves, things like that, right? And he says, you go from the greatest moment of excitement, he says, to then having somebody do that. And then somebody tried to, and Steve Nikosha was wearing a helmet, and he had the face mask in his hand. Well, some guy came out and grabbed his helmet. If you watch the tape further, right, Nikosha found the guy and was, right?
Not happy.
And knocking him to the ground. Like, found him.
Yeah, not the happiest camper.
One of the security people in Baltimore that night, as they get into the clubhouse, found the guy and got the hat back. And then it didn't take long for Jacoby to get the hat, but then Kent didn't have possession of it long because the Hall of Fame wanted 2 items from Game 7. They wanted Willie Stargell's bat that hit what proved to be the game-winning home run that turned a 1-0 game to a 2-1, and they wanted Kent Jacoby's hat.
Oh, my God.
Which he was proud. He was proud now at this point. It's like he says, hey, a piece of me's in the Hall of Fame. Well, yeah, darn right. That's tremendous. I thought it was a great story last night.
It's a good one.
A great story. And as I say, Chris Carlin will be one I'm going to talk to my class about. Like, you want to get involved in this? You know, I mean, here's a guy that got in, quote, at the lowest level. You know,
and worked his keister off.
And worked his backside off to get where he is today. And has always been willing to, okay, what does the organization need me to do? I mean, do you need me to steal signs? No, I'm just kidding.
Too far.
It's just
well, organization's doing
right. But
yeah.
But I wanted at least that was a great event last night. It was sold out, the whole thing. Joe Putnam and I were there. Which meant that he could not be part of the trivia team last night.
He did miss out on trivia last night, and we did have an unfortunate end to our night. The last question was about the Cubs and the 2016 World Series team. We got that correct, but we did end up losing. It was 2010's trivia. It was honestly heartbreaking in terms of an ending. It hurt me deep down. But we had a good run. If we had Joe Putnam, we would have won. I firmly believe that.
Right, so
we only got 6 questions wrong the entire night out of 40. Joe not being there cost us the game.
Well, there's a way to solve that. Dick Girardi, you and I solved it.
We did.
At Purdue.
That's correct.
Dick saved up 5 Jeopardy games. And we decided that on a conference call, we would bring in Joe Putnam following Penn State women's gymnastics. Because Joe's the public address announcer. Does great work. And we were doing fine on our own, to be honest with you. We did well. Fine on our own. But there were a couple like, what the heck is hey, Joe? Right? And then every time one of us would give an answer, Dick would say, what does Joe think? He says, no, I think they got it right. Okay.
I believe they call that bringing in a ringer, I think is the best way to put it.
No, Joe is a teammate. Okay? When we were in Orlando, Joe was sitting right there with us. Last year in Charleston, Joe's sitting right there with us. I mean, this is not a foreign concept, okay?
It is not.
It's not a foreign concept, my goodness. All right, so I do want to get to a couple of quick things. Ohio State is interesting. Travion Henderson is going to come back.
He's coming back. They got Quinshon Judkins from the portal, so they got 2 running back. They have a dual-headed monster running back now.
They do. Judkins is obviously an excellent, hard-running running back. I mean, he runs right with a purpose. I mean, he just gets in there. I mean, I know it's cliche-ish, but you can just see. But at the same time, he was not considered by his Ole Miss teammates to be a great teammate. I always have to balance that. Okay, the balance is talent. Okay, and then the kind of person you happen to be. And if I'm sorry, talent doesn't win out for me every time. And that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because he's not a better running back. Travion Henderson is the better running back.
He's a heck of a back.
Somebody's seen both in person. They have different styles, right? And Judkins is more durable than Henderson, but as a player, Henderson is the better player. I'd take him in a heartbeat. And then there's Alabama.
Woe is me, Steve. Woe is me.
Nobody's talking about people going to Arizona and talking to Arizona players. Nobody is talking about going to Washington and talking to Washington players. It's all about Alabama. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe. Excuse me. Welcome in Tuscaloosa to the real world. Okay? It's a big, wide world out there. And now you get to experience what others have experienced along the way.
They got to live in La La Land for years because they had Nick Saban, and that meant that they were untouchable.
Right. Or, they weren't losing guys in the portal. Right? They're staying, and if they need to be selective, they could get a couple of guys in the portal that would help them out. Gibbs, for example, running back for Detroit.
Awesome.
Right? Transferred from Georgia Tech down there. They had that outside linebacker they got from Tennessee a couple of years ago. But, they've been very selective as to who they have. But here's, again, the NCAA just doesn't have realistic rules.
What? The NCAA not being an organization with a clear set of very basic, understandable rules that make sense to everyone because they're logical?
So guess who's on campus last night in Tuscaloosa and was over at Bryant-Denny Stadium at one point?
Might his initials be the inverse of mine by chance? Might they be LK?
It is Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin was on campus because guess what? When players are in the portal, you are allowed to actually go on campus to talk to them.
Makes no sense. You shouldn't be able to go on campus and talk to players
at all. I mean, zero. You should not be allowed on campus at all unless you were invited by the current administration to be there. In other words, hey, it's the off season. Hey, why don't you come over? You want to tour our facilities? Hey, this is what we have. Blah, blah. Okay. At our invitation. It's great to have you. Or you call. I'd love to see your facilities. Hey, we'd love to. Why don't you come on over? When you get a chance. How about, can you make it in Friday? Hey, great. We'll give you the whole tour, the whole deal. I mean, I'll never forget. Now, he wasn't an active coach at the time. But I'll never forget when Bo Schembechler came here and wanted to look at all of Penn State's facilities. And you're standing there and you're watching Joe and Bo Schembechler walk right from Lash Building over to Louisville Hall. You're like going, okay, it's something you don't see every day. It's like, okay. And Bo, as you know, Michigan voted against Penn State coming in, but Bo would, and I've talked to John Bacon about this, Bo would be the first one to say, he says, absolutely zero to do with Penn State. He says, I didn't like how the Big Ten did it. Right. Because of, what do you mean? Everybody was shocked. Like, you're doing what? In other words, they announced the invitation. They never told the athletic people.
Which is wild to do.
Right. That's why Michigan voted against it. It had, I know there's hey, voted against those evil people. No, they voted. The vote was against the Big Ten. It was not against Penn State. And Schembechler was the first to tell everybody privately, it has nothing to do with them. Right? I mean, they could have brought in USC and they would have said no. Right? But yeah, you're allowed to go to campus. And I'll never forget 2012 here. Who could forget 2012 if you were around at that point? When the NCAA ruled that you could recruit any Penn State player and they would be not only immediately eligible, but here's the second part, it would not count against your 85. So say you came onto campus and you got 3 Penn State players, you could carry 88 scholarship players that year.
Crazy.
Right. That was the other part of the rule nobody ever talks about. So they were all over this campus right after Mark Emmert had his world-famous press conference, and then Jeremy Schaap hyperventilated about things and whatever. I'll never... at some point, maybe I will write a book. Not this day. not this year, and not in the next few years, but at some point I might. And when it is, it's going to be, could be very interesting. Nobody will read it, but
and I'll get a footnote and say, on that day I mentioned to Kyle F., I was going to write a book.
Hey, nobody will read it, but that's fine, which I understand. But they're all over the place. Illinois had 6 coaches total on campus. Well, Bill O'Brien was leaving the building, Lash Building, to fly to Bristol because he was going to do the ESPN car wash that day. And he comes out, and he's got all these people with Illinois bags, are all, briefcases, things like that, all Illinois, garb things,
shirts and
everything,
quarter zips, whatever.
Right, he's coming out. He says, "There's 6 of them out there." I'll never forget. He says, "Jonesy, there's 6 of them out there." Right? And they're following, and not just Illinois, but there are others on campus following people all over the place, following the class, following the dorms. The players finally gathered in the weight room and would not leave the weight room because they felt that was their shelter, because the recruiters couldn't come in the building. And they just wanted to be shut off from everybody instead of being hounded everywhere they went. And look, they were getting calls left and right. I mean, Mike Hull, who ended up being a second-team All-American here, is driving back to Pittsburgh, and he's all set to commit and go to Pitt. And Mike Maudie called him. And when Mike was done, Hull was in the process of turning the car around and driving back to campus. That's why guys like Mike Maudie, Michael Zordich, right, were so important in helping Bill re-recruit these guys and steady the ship. That's why that 2012 is up there on the facade of the luxury suites, because very, very few programs could have survived that year. I mean, very few could have. And then they kept it alive the next year, and we're over 500. And as Bill told me once, he told me 20 times, he said, "Jones, he says, just hang in there." He says, because the next 2 years, 15 and 16, or excuse me, 14 and 15 are going to be the 2 worst years. 14 and 15, because of the drop in scholarships, competitive, the whole thing. And it turned out that Bill ended up getting the Houston Texans job, and James is the one that had to guide them through 14 and 15. That's why I always love when they talk about his record against certain teams. Like, you're including the first 2 years? He played the bowl game against Boston College, which Penn State won, with 63 available scholarship players total, but only had 41 available for the game. He had 41 scholarship players available for the game because he was trying. Because I gave him so much credit for this. Instead of saying, "Hey, just start playing, we're going to quick fix, I got to save my record," the whole thing. Nope. He felt that, hey, you're not ready to play. I'm not going to force you in there. You need to redshirt. Long term, this will help the program. He was thinking big picture, forward thinking. He said, and whatever I can do to survive now will survive, right? Well, they had 41 scholarship players as part of their survival mode against Boston College and won the game in overtime in the Pinstripe Bowl. And it was that kind of forward thinking that got Penn State back on track quicker than people expected, and they won the Big Ten championship in 2016. Now they've been to, 5 New Year's Six bowl games since.
Not bad.
Along the way. Now, of course, with the expansion of the college football playoff, we'll see how that now plays out going forward. But this is something that's, with Alabama, I can't stand the fact that they can go on campus. Now, if you want to go to Tuscaloosa and you want to meet them
at a restaurant,
at the apartment complex, something, whatever, fine, but not on campus. My goodness, but you're allowed to. So it's not, you can't sit there and say, well, the scruples. Like, no, you can't because it's allowed, right? And that's why the NCAA does things that, like, just defy common sense. And that's the way it is. Now, I mentioned Ross Bjork, taking over the job. And as I mentioned, as a fundraiser, now look, at Texas A&M, it doesn't take much to fundraise. I mean, they've got money all over the place there. Ohio State obviously has a lot of money and a lot of people that donate. He's going to be perfectly fine there. The question is going to be, how does he then go out and what happens if Ryan Day loses again to Michigan? What now he's going to make one of the bigger choices of his career.
What happens if Ohio State comes fourth in the Big Ten next year?
But that would be enough to, I think, being fourth gets you to the college football playoff. So that doesn't, okay.
But like, let's say fifth happens.
Right.
What happens if he gets fifth? Let's say he beats Michigan but gets fifth somehow, loses enough games, fifth happens.
I don't know.
What do you do?
That I don't know.
It puts you into that weird realm that we've seen a lot of pro teams get in, where it's like the coach might be gone, might not be. No one really knows what they're going to do because it's a tough situation to be in.
Sure. All right, so here, according to Stuart Mandel of The Athletic, here are the starters coming back for the 4 teams that did make the playoffs. Texas has 14 returning.
Strong.
Including Quinn Ewers. Alabama has 7 returning, including Jalen Milroe. Michigan now has 6 returning. Washington has 2.
Yep.
And, of course, Washington is playing here, November 2nd?
November 2nd.
Yeah, that's all right. So they'll be here for that. So that's what I find, that'll be interesting moving forward as to what goes on there, because the off season. Here's an interesting. Let me ask this question to you.
Let me answer.
What has become more interesting to you? The games or the matches, or the off season or the movement of players? What's more interesting to you?
If I was answering truthfully, I'm gonna say
I was hoping to go in that direction.
Yeah.
Yes,
like my heart wants to say the games. My heart wants to say the games because I love watching the games. For me, as a soccer fan, a football fan, whatever sport it is, I love watching the game. I love watching the NBA and watching all the games happen and League Pass, whatever. I love it. But there's something about the idea of like a story being written and there being basically a blank canvas for this season. Like if you went into this, like, what was it, the 2019 offseason and said, oh, Kawhi Leonard's going to go sign with the Clippers because they're going to also trade 17 million picks to the Thunder. And then because of that, the Lakers are getting Anthony Davis. And then alongside all of this, the Nets are getting KD and Kyrie, and that's going to happen. And then there's other trades that are going to happen. But then it's now going to lead us to 2024, where all of a sudden the Oklahoma City Thunder are the best team in the NBA because of this trade that has not won the Clippers anything and not gotten them to a championship game. Like the idea of that, or of somehow because of Houston nightclubs, James Harden ended up somehow getting to Los Angeles. Like the stories of the off season are always really fun, and they generate more interest than a season does, because a lot of the time you can kind of predict what's going to happen in a season, but the off season is just the wild, wild west. Doesn't matter what sport it is. Doesn't matter. This season in baseball, outside of Shohei, it's been pretty tame, but Shohei Ohtani completely upended that by signing a bajillion-dollar contract. And it's really interesting to watch the hot stove fall apart. Or in soccer, all of a sudden, the last 24 hours, the deadline day, is the most interesting day in sports. And I'll stand by that till the day I die. Watching that 24-hour period, or like that 6-hour stretch, where it's just light enough here in the U.S. and you have Twitter notifications on for Fabrizio Romano, the Adam Schefter of soccer. Like, dude is sending out tweet after tweet after tweet for like 24 hours straight of this player moved, this player flew in, failed a medical, but still moved. Like, just seeing the things happen, the storylines get made is really fun, but also crazy, truly insane. So the long answer is I like watching the offseason more. I want to say the games, but it's just not the truth. And that's the truth. It's the answer for pretty much most of my generation.
No.
I just had
there's never anything wrong with that answer.
My brain just exploded everywhere.
No, but I asked. I didn't ask to be critical. It just asked. You're not alone. I would say that for the vast majority of fans now, if their team's not winning at all, the seasons get frustrating for them. Mm-hmm. The offseason lends hope. Hope is fun.
But it's the hope that kills you.
But hope is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now, take, for example, Washington, University of Washington. They thought they had a pretty good team. It's the last year of the Pac-12. They're going to go to the Big Ten. They like their coach. They got a veteran team. A lot of these guys came back to see if they could get to the college football playoff. Pac-12 hadn't been the playoff since Washington did in 2016. Okay, so it's been a while. So they had hope going into the season. And then as the season went, excitement. Beat Oregon at home. Came from behind to do it. Wow. Okay. Then they lost a game. Or, they didn't lose a game. They kept on winning. They're an underdog to Oregon again in the Pac-12 championship game in Vegas. Win convincingly. Right? Win their semifinal game over Texas, despite clock management that was interesting in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, lost the title game to Michigan. So the season for Washington fans had to be exciting because of what they accomplished. And then there's the crushing part that it's over and you lose your coach to Alabama. Like Nick Saban retires, and you're sitting in Tacoma, Seattle, Spokane, wherever you happen to be, and go, oh, geez, that's too bad. Saban's such a great coach. Yeah, the profession will miss him. What do you mean they want our coach? Right? We only have 2 starters back next year, and we got Jed Fish now, who, by the way, is a good coach. But everything's changed for them, for that fan base in a short period of time. I will always, now again, it's easy for me because I'm sitting in the best seat in the house. All right? I'm sitting with incredible people like Jack or Dick. And so to me, the games are everything. I mean, they're everything to me. But I have a different seat than the fan does. And I love the ability to paint a picture, describe plays, a time and score, whatever it happens to be, interact with the people I work with. So that's why, for me, it's fun. I'd rather watch the games. But I can understand when somebody says to me, I have more people telling me that the off-season's more exciting. Now, I don't know if that's the fantasy football world speaking. Yeah. I don't know.
I can give a logic here that I think will help a little bit, which is that the off-season doesn't have as low of lows or as high of highs as the season itself does. That, for me, there is not much better than watching your team win. Like, for me, watching the Saints in the 2018-19 season beat the Rams in that game where both teams were the best in the NFL, and watching that game happen, the Saints win in a shootout, I remember being on top of the world because I felt like we're going to go do this thing. We're going to go win the Super Bowl. It's going to happen this year again, and it's going to bring me so much joy.
Right.
But then you bring us to a minute and 12 seconds left in the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game, and it's a full 180. Right. Where all of a sudden I'm now on the lowest of lows. And I am dejected because I know that because the pass interference was not called, we're not going to win this game now.
Right.
And there were people saying, no, you still have a chance. There's still time. I said, no, it's not how it works. Like when you can tell the momentum is gone, the team is deflated, there's no getting that back. The season's over. And then we ended up going to lose the game. The off season, well, you might, let's say, sign Julian Fleming, or you get some big recruits, and it's a really big high for you. You don't lose anybody, but you get a lot of people. Right. You get up to that certain level. You can only get up to like an 80. The high of being in the NFC Championship game is 100. The high is a bigger high, but it's a bigger low.
Right.
That's the difference. It's a bigger scale for a season. Right. People enjoy the almost level-headedness an off-season can bring because there's only so much you can do. It's just speculation. But the season itself is where your actual emotions come out.
Yeah, no, and again, I'm in a different spot. So I do see not the full process, because I'm not sitting in meetings and things like that. Okay, so I'm not doing that. But will I go to a couple of early morning workouts? Yes. Will I go to spring practice? Like all of them? Yes. Now, last year, I remember I missed the first 3 because Penn State was in the NCAA tournament. I remember James is out in the practice field, so I went to practice 4. And there's 15 of them. The blue-white game's the 15th. He looks over, he goes, "You're here." He says, "This is the first time I've ever had to share you at this time of the year." Right? Yeah, right? But you're there for it. So you see the process playing out as to what, why, or why not that happens along the way as the process goes. And then after you go through the next transfer portal, I may go to a workout during the course of the summer that you're allowed to go to, right? And then you go to training camp and you see the process playing out on an everyday basis to get there, and you're not thinking about player movement or anything like that, or I don't do fantasy, whatever. Like Jerry Valeri is like the fantasy king, but then again, his life is a fantasy. Right. But and you see it all playing out on a weekly basis, leading into the first game, leading from game to game, what adjustments they might make, who's now playing, who's banged up, who might not be able to go, who got better now has put themselves in a position and earned more trust from the coaches to play. So I've seen, because I see the process play out every day and you get immersed in it, same thing with basketball. I have no idea how many practices I've gone to for basketball this season, right? But I see how Mike wants to do things, why he wants to do it, how he instructs his players, who really can play, and then who is struggling to pick up the system. Who's the square peg in the round hole, right? Systematically, and and then you see it play out in games. So I'm always immersed in the process of it and the season of it. Right now, at the end, okay, who goes into the transfer portal? Okay, well, now we're talking about roster construction here. So I see Alex Bacchetta goes to Rice. Okay. But I already have a pretty good handle about where Alex, by the way, the last half of the season in practice punted really well. Okay. Let's give credit to where credit's due. But he wasn't going to pass out the other 2 guys. Okay? He's not going to pass out Riley Thompson. He's not going to pass out Gabe Wosu. Gabe Wosu's become exponentially more consistent as a punter, and that sucker can. The ball makes an audible noise. No matter how far away you happen to be. But
I normally.
But you see what I'm saying about you see this stuff like, okay.
Just real quick, I want to Gabe Wosu real fast. I went to one game this season where I wasn't covering it. My brother was there. My mom was there. My brother saw Gabe Wosu at 6'17" and said, he's going to hit that ball through the stadium. And I said, there's a chance of it. I wouldn't doubt he couldn't do it.
But he's a very, what's interesting about him, he's a very quiet, unassuming guy.
He's just 6'7" and can punt a ball 500 yards.
He's lost weight.
Ooh.
Oh, he was bigger before. Now he's lost weight. But but I see that, and it's like, okay, I mean, who's going to opt for the NFL draft? Right? But then they need a receiver. Okay. I'm excited to see Julian Fleming play here. I think he can make a big difference here. Big difference. I'm going to get to all that in a moment. Nolan Rucci. I was talking to Matt LePay, the play-by-play voice of Wisconsin, the other night. He can't say enough good things about Nolan Rucci. Right? Well, you have 2 tackles here. Olu's going to be a top 10 pick. We'll just be loose about where he goes, but he's going to be in the top 10 somewhere. He could be top 5.
He could be 1. He could go 1 to 10 somewhere in there.
And Caden Wallace. Okay, so now you have Drew Shelton, and you have Anthony Donko, and you have Javen Williams, and now you got Nolan Rucci. Great pickup to me. Hey, look, now this guy has talent. Okay, let's see now if Phil Troutwine can harness that and go from there. The fact that he's going to be a part of spring practice, really important. The 2 corners, okay, these were the top 2 corners they had on their portal list. They said, these are the 2 guys we need to get. Okay, so I know you're going to hear a lot about other people, but these are the 2 guys, Harris
Kimber.
Okay, and Kimber, okay, Georgia, Florida, respectively. Okay. They pick up the defensive end from Wisconsin, Pennsylvania guy. They pick up the kicker from Tulsa. Right? They've done well for themselves, being selective in the portal to, quote, fill gaps. But the other important part in this is as follows. Would I rather have a defensive tackle out of the portal or Devon Ellies? I would take Devon Ellies any day of the week. Right? And by the way, and don't forget, Derek Tangelo came here from Duke and did a terrific job. Okay. Would I rather have a defensive tackle out of the portal or Akeem Beeman? I'd rather have Beeman.
Because?
I know what he can do, and I know how he fits. And Ellies, I saw how much. I mean, Ellies got
good.
Really, by the end of the year, like, whew, he was playing terrific. Beeman played really well all year in his own way. And so you've got Ellies, Beeman, Izzard, Durant.
He was good.
Okay. Vandenberg. All right. Okay. So you got those guys, and then we'll see what Alonzo Ford does. I mean, I could not tell you in a million years. Alonzo Ford got hurt in the first day of practice, training camp. So I can't tell you anything about what he can and can't do. Right? But would I rather have those? To me, those were victories without having to go to the portal. Right? Now let's get to the one, and then Nick Dawkins coming back for an additional year. Right? He can play either center guard spot. Right? And because he can, right? You get Sal Wormley coming back for a 6th year. Would I rather have a portal guy or Sal Wormley? I'd rather have Sal Wormley. Right? You got Venga Ioane. Right? Dawkins is coming back. So now you have some decisions to make. Do I want to go with Dawkins at center? Right? Or do I want to maybe move some parts around and see, because James does not recruit centers. The reason they don't recruit centers is very simple. Right? If that's all you're locked into, right? You better be the starter the entire time. He wants guys that bring versatility, right? So Juice Scruggs moved from guard to center. Juice, of course, now is going to play a playoff game with the Houston Texans this weekend. Hunter Nourzad was a guard. He's a center. I mean, it's been the Michael Menet had been a guard. He became a center. All right. That way you've got versatility with your personnel up front. You always want to play your 5 best guys. Right. So if somebody gets bumped up, like, well, why is he here? Why is he? Because he's one of the 5 best guys. So they're if you have versatility, you can move a couple of parts around to get your 5 best guys out there. Tyler Warren coming back, big victory because Dinkins is going to be a good player. You know, and then, you know, you've got Rapley, you've got Jerry Cross, and then Reynolds looks like a terrific prospect coming in, although I don't think Reynolds can come in until June. I believe he's not going to be here in the spring. So now let's get to Keandre Lambert-Smith. For the most part, he had a really good season, right? At the end of the year, his end of the year was different than his end of the year in 2022. In 22, he had the big game against Michigan State. He then followed up with a big game in the Rose Bowl against Utah, including the 88-yard touchdown pass. Right? Got off to a really good start this year, but this time around, oh, look, they ran Michigan State out of Ford Field, which was expected. All right. But other guys were the pass-catching stars in that game. Theo Johnson, Warren, Amari Evans had that huge pass play, you know, utilizing the running backs and so forth. So, you know, Lambert-Smith didn't really get involved a lot. He didn't get involved a lot against Ole Miss. They had that one pass play. You know, should he probably have caught it? Yeah, he should have caught it. It would have been a first down. But he really wasn't deeply involved in the game. Okay? He played, but in terms of... So people have questions. I would rather have Keandre Lambert-Smith than somebody I really don't know out of the portal. Because just because they're in the portal doesn't mean they're the answer to all your prayers.
Doesn't mean it's going to work.
Okay? So now you have Julian Fleming, big pickup, right? He is a known entity in the portal. He's a known entity to everybody in this area, in this program. How many games have I now done in my career where Julian Fleming is playing against Penn State? I mean, the guy doesn't drop passes. The guy runs really great routes. The guy blocks his backside off and just really carries himself so well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Good at what he does.
So guess what? In your selective in the portal, you picked up a gem. Okay, Harrison Wallace's problem is just flat out injuries. He's talented. I mean, Trey Wallace is a talented player, right? Got to keep him healthy. And now you got Keandre Lambert-Smith, whom I feel will be an even more productive player because Fleming is in the lineup. I believe that. And I'd rather have him because I know what he's capable of, and he's capable of really good things. Really good things. I'd rather have him than a portal guy. Right?
That's fair.
And that's me. I mean, because I know what you're getting with him, and I like the balance he brings. And now you'll see how an Amari Evans, a Liam Clifford, a Caden Saunders, a Malik McLean, let's see how it plays out. But just because you get somebody out of the portal, while it gives you hope as a fan, it doesn't always mean it's the best solution. And to me, Penn State picked up victories in the portal because they're all those players I like. You know, and I've seen them all play. All those players I like. And I feel like they picked up non-portal victories with the return of Wormley, Ellies, Beeman, Lambert-Smith, right? Because I just feel that they are part of making a team better, and Lambert-Smith, I think, becomes a better player because of who's around him now.
Yeah.
All right, and I think that makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. I mean, and it's going to be, I think, interesting for me to watch how it all works together because, certain people take certain shots, and it's not a big group. All right, it's not. It's like the comments section. Like, okay, great. Doesn't mean that all comments are like, right? But it seems like certain players will get picked on. The quarterback's always going to get picked on. So the head coach is always going to get picked on. The quarterback is always going to get picked on. And then there are other guys along the way that they get targeted by. Like Caden Wallace got targeted all the time by fans about, he can't do that. And you know what? The guy just turned in one heck of a season.
Yeah.
Right? Now, do I see in the comments section, hey, you know what? Let's give credit where credit's due. He turned in a heck of a... No. Can't do that. Lambert-Smith's been one of those guys where I just feel like,
He's getting slandered for no reason.
Well, in other words, you sit there and you see Marvin Harrison Jr. Wow. Okay. Well, Keandre Lambert-Smith is a really good player, but he's not Marvin Harrison Jr.
Because no one is.
Okay. Dunzier, the wide receiver for Washington, it might be the other guy that's in Harrison's class. Okay? But to be honest with you, Lambert-Smith, to me, is every bit as good as Roman Wilson. Yeah. I mean, Roman Wilson's a really good player, but he's really, really good.
Yeah.
Right? And does a lot of really good things. But what did he do in the whether it's Ohio State, Penn State, he didn't have, Right? That happens. I mean, Keandre Lambert-Smith is as good, if not better, than Roman Wilson. Same thing with Cornelius Johnson. Right? But he's not Marvin Harrison. He's not Chris Olave. He's not, he's not Garrett Wilson. Okay. That's okay. But I don't want to talk about what he isn't.
I want to talk about who he is.
Who he is. Right? The guy works hard in practice. The guy has for some reason, he's been labeled by some people as a problem guy. Right? I'm trying to think which day he was a problem. Right? He can kid around. Right? With he's become exponentially more consistent in practice, like by a wide margin, way more consistent in practice. And the other players seem to like him, and guess what? And he can kind of kid around a little bit with James once in a while when the moment's right. I mean, you can't, at certain moments, the moment's wrong, don't say a word. But he can do that, and it's like, people make assumptions about players sometimes. And don't assume. You've heard what? From who? Who told you? And I've heard is always a general statement like you really actually didn't hear.
Yeah.
Or you read it someplace that somebody made a comment they think, I'm trying to think which day I thought Keandre Lambert-Smith was a problem. I'm trying to think of which day that was. He's been here for years now. Right? And I get baffled by some of this stuff. And I know everybody wants insight as to why not. I totally get that. Right? Especially we're in the ticket renewal period right now. I had people in Williamsport coming up to me last night. I renewed my tickets today. And that, believe me, thrilled about that. But I don't know where sometimes when people make certain comments about players, I don't know where it comes from.
They come from a place of wanting more hope and wanting an answer to everything, because fans assume everything is black and white, but it is not. A lot of the time it is gray. It is gray in pretty much everything in sports, and that is how the sports world operates. Well,
I'll give you an example. Jalen Carter. Right? When I talk about Jalen Carter, do I know him? No. Ever seen him play in person? No, but I can see on TV he's a tremendous talent. But there have been certain reports off the field that, by the way, are corroborated, where you sit back and say, what the heck?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's why you have open questions. Antonio Brown, I have open questions, because there is a long list of question marks that have been confirmed. Like, what the heck?
And now the more fun one in the NFL is Russell Wilson, where out of Seattle, it was hidden for years. And then as soon as he went to Denver, every Seattle player was like, he was terrible. We did not like him as a teammate. And just all of a sudden, 100 reports came out. And Russ was like, they're not telling the truth. And it's like, really? If everyone on the team is in agreement, except for you?
I mean, who was ever... So back to Dre. Who said negative things about him around here? Nobody has. At least I know the kind of guy I'm around and see. Now, I'm not in the meetings or things like that, but my dealings have always been with him. Hey, on the practice field, right? Talking to him post game, quarterback club, things like that. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's, you know, that's why I buy, like, Caden Wallace. Caden Wallace was the one that really bugged me a lot. And the reason it bugged me a lot was, okay, I understand that there are people that, you know, they see the performance and they're not enamored with it. You are perfectly entitled to, because you're watching it. You can see it, absolutely. Right? But, I mean, how often does a guy need to hear all that? Right? Then he turns in a great year and hardly anybody talks about it. Okay. You know, it's like, all right.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah. Before we wrap, I do have one topic I want to discuss and bring up because it's something that's been going on for a few years now. The regional sports networks and Diamond Sports recently partnered with Amazon to help them in a restructuring agreement to not go bankrupt and to get out of their bankruptcy hole, which I don't know what that means in terms of sports, if they'll stay on the regional networks, if they will also be on Amazon, because that's going to open a whole can of worms, because that now means 11 MLB teams, 15 NBA teams, 11 NHL teams could have broadcasts on Amazon, which, again, is a very big thing for sports.
Remember, the Yankees are on Amazon. Okay, certain games, not, you know, it's a smaller package.
But this all of a sudden adds to Amazon's portfolio of sport. They've already got Thursday Night Football. They've got a lot of things slowly they're adding to, and it's becoming more apparent they're getting a lot more into it. And they've been pretty successful so far in terms of their sports and the games they cover. The Thursday Night Football has been pretty good. It's not been world-beating levels, but it's been pretty good.
They've met their goals.
Yeah.
They did not meet the goal the first year. They met their goal this year. They wanted right around 12 million. They got right around 12 million. You know, they had a better schedule.
Yes.
Right? But, yeah.
They had too many Saints games, but that's okay.
Oh, just...
Well, because we were a terrible team, and why'd you want to watch us? No one did.
Just the worst.
No, I'm not the worst. Dennis Allen is. But the point... firing shots today. The point, though, is that they now have an agreement with the Diamond Sports and Bally and all those groupings.
Yeah.
This could be a very big long-term sports fix for regional sports networks. I know it's been talked about a lot and discussed, the idea that regional sports networks make a lot of money for these teams. It helps out a lot of markets, a lot of people, a lot of things.
Right.
And if regional sports networks go away, that's not good. But if regional sports networks turn into this, or like NBA League Pass kind of has for the NBA, it could open a lot of doors for a lot of teams to still continue to make the money and revenue they have been. So when you see this, how does this make you feel about sports moving forward in terms of broadcasting, regional sports networks, all of it?
Virtually every team threw a lot of their financial eggs into the regional sports bucket. For Major League Baseball in particular,
they are reliant on it.
Right, it's really big, and there's only so much sustainability out there with it. The teams that have been successful in this area have been the ones that got in early and own, or at least own, a significant portion of the network themselves. Nesson, Red Sox. Yes, Yankees. I don't think the Mets have a piece of SNY.
They do not.
No.
But SNY is its own thing, and that's big.
But when the team is invested in it, I think it's a big difference. The Dodgers are able to do what they do because they have a gigantic contract, but it took them forever to clear it in markets. There's a long period of time in Southern California where Dodger games, even with Vin Scully doing the games on TV, were hit and miss because cable companies did not want to pick it up because of the price that was going to be charged for it. There's only so much. This is the part that people, I think a lot of people grasp because of their own personal lives. There's only so much money out there. And the question that has to be asked is, in sports, are they hitting their limit? Oh, look at the contract the Big Ten got. All right, so, okay. NBC, after not renewing the NHL, had a little more money to play with to invest in this. CBS is losing the SEC, so they had more money to invest in this. And now they're putting more money in than the previous contracts, but they took something off the books
maneuvering
to get there. And Fox is just all in.
Yeah, and the one that's going to be the most interesting, of course, the one coming up, the NBA.
The NBA.
Because they're shooting for the moon, apparently.
Right. They're not going to get it. They're going to now. I think the NBA is going to double. They will not triple.
Adam Silver is stated up trying to triple it.
But remember, when you throw stuff like that out there, that is the opening salvo of negotiations where I shoot high.
And then
Notre Dame is going to be, we want 70 to 75 million. Now, their new deal with NBC through 2029, did they get 70, 75 million per year? No, of course not, because that was their, we're going to float this. I think they ended up getting, 40, 35, 40, something like that. Okay. These regional networks are throwing a lot of money into it. I don't know how much they're getting back from advertisers, and I don't know what they're getting in terms of cable dollars. I mean, why is CBS partnered with Turner on the NCAA tournament? Because CBS could not foot the bill of nearly $1 billion a year for the NCAA tournament, but by bringing Turner in, we can see every game. Yes, that's part of it on TNT, True, and TBS. Yes. But Turner brought with it cable subscriptions, which brought the additional revenue needed to balance the books for the networks. The question is going to be whether these regional sports networks can survive and at what level. Because now, leagues, I think Cleveland and Minnesota are two, and Arizona might be a third, where the league is going to take over. And San Diego's kind of in that spot, too.
Yeah, currently the two that have been taken over officially have been the Diamondbacks and Padres. Those are the two that were taken over by the league.
I think Cleveland and Minnesota might be in the same boat. Notice Minnesota now, the Twins, talking about the Twins, are shedding salary. Why? Because that cable deal they had up there was worth $45 million a year. Right?
A lot of money.
That's what struck me about the Pirates. I thought, normally I have a pretty good handle on what numbers happen to be in this area. I thought the Pirate deal was around 15. 15, 20, something like that. It was 60.
Whew.
Now, the Pirates are going to continue on, so anybody who has AT&T Sportsnet or wherever, what is it called these days? What would the Fenway people call it?
I forget the name.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right, but the Pirates are going to continue there. All right, so so Pirate fans, you're not going to lose out on, and locally on cable channel 843, you're not going to lose out on it. They're still going to be there because they made that decision. But they can't afford this. Right? You can't have a business where you're throwing money, and you're not balancing the books. These guys aren't balancing the books. And in turn, the domino is going to be, now we don't have the money to give. Because remember, when Major League Baseball negotiated their TV deal and on the ESPN part, that was a reduction. That's why they brought Apple in. Why does Apple have the Friday night game? You notice it's almost dollar for dollar. They made up for the reduction. That's why they have the Friday night game on Apple.
Smart business.
All right? But that's where we are with regional networks. Teams have become so reliant on that cushion of revenue. Now it's shaky. It's on incredibly shaky ground for both the NBA and for Major League Baseball. And the question is going to be for those who are on really shaky ground, what does that mean for your team moving forward? And the Twins are a good example.
Yeah.
The Twins are losing their deal.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what they're doing now? Shedding salary.
That they are. And hopefully we'll have more answers as time comes on here on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with